Hi, I'm backstage with Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, and you guys have kind of been a sleeper hit. I mean, you certainly didn't have the color fanfare when you launched or anything like that. Mike was just back here. He said he thought you were stupid. Paul wrote something nasty about you. There's Ron Conway waving. That they were stupid? You are live. All right, so no one really thought you guys were going to be as big as you have, and
Absolutely
I can tell you the last couple of days, you guys have been the sort of example everyone keeps bringing up. One of the companies that's in the finals, Get Around, people keep saying, Chris Sacca said, oh, this is the Airbnb I could get. I passed on Airbnb. I thought it was stupid. I can't believe I passed on it. I mean, the fact that people passed on you is dictating investment decisions because it's seen as such a mistake.
That's ridiculous. When I first told my parents, they thought I was insane about this idea. And when we first met Paul Graham in January 2009, he admitted he thought the idea was terrible. And Paul Graham only invested in us when he heard about the Obama story, and he figured, well, these guys are like really creative, smart entrepreneurs. They'll probably change their idea. Like that's the only reason he invested in us, is he thought we were going to change their idea. He hated it. And we met in the fall of 2008, probably 15 or 20 angels. And well, probably half of them didn't return my emails, and the ones that did, like, no one wanted to invest in us. So it was just something that just seemed like obviously a bad idea until one day it seemed like obviously a good idea. And I don't know when that tipped. I think it was just like enough people doing it.
So what was the insight that you had that other people missed?
The insight we had was that we actually did it. The way this started is that I moved, Joe was my co-founder, was living in San Francisco, and I was living in Los Angeles. I came up to San Francisco. We had to figure out a way to make rent. This international design conference is coming to San Francisco. All the hotels are sold out, and so we trying to figure out how are we going to make rent. And Joe had some airbeds in his closet. We pulled out the airbeds, and we decided we were going to create an air bed and breakfast one weekend, and it was only meant to make our rent. We ended up hosting 3 people. We made a bunch of money. And so I think the insight we gained was we, by accident, I guess you could say, did it ourselves, had an amazing experience, and by then we realized, like, this is awesome. One day people all over the world are going to do this. I don't think we had the vision that people are going to be renting all the spaces they're renting. We originally envisioned like kind of airbeds and like kind of budget. It was a little different vision.
Right. Well, it's fascinating because it tipped so quickly. And usually when someone has this kind of story, it takes a long time. It's also interesting because, especially in the 90s when I first moved to Silicon Valley, founders would say exactly what you just said. Like, they'd had this story of like, oh, well, I did this, and then I saw these keys, and I realized I needed a special keyring. And it turned out it was all marketing. Like the eBay Pez dispensers is the famous example. But so is that really the real story, or is that all marketing?
It's all
that a
real.
PR person has come up with later?
If you search in Google Air Bed and Breakfast, because that was our original name, you will see original blog posts from like October 2007 when people kind of, in a half-jokingly way, are covering us in a blog, like couple designers doing this little thing, and it was a really slow launch. It was like then 2008, we did like South by Southwest, then Eric Sconfield had covered us in August of 2008, and even it was like still like 2 years, or a year and a half after that it took us to get to where we are. So it was a pretty long road. The story is pretty public, and we kind of got in this market by accident. And I moved up to San Francisco to be an entrepreneur, but I was an industrial designer in Los Angeles making like physical products. So it was kind of serendipitous that we got into this space.
Now, according to Mike, who just yelled this from the hallway, Ron Conway told him yesterday that you guys are on a $500 million revenue runway.
I don't know where he heard that, or if, I think he misunderstood. We haven't disclosed revenue, but that's not the number for sure.
And it's lower, not higher.
It's not higher. I can confirm that.
All right, and you guys, another stat I heard from our producer John Orland, you guys book more rooms on Airbnb than there are hotel rooms in New York. Am I getting that right?
Tonight in New York City, more people will stay on Airbnb than any hotel in New York City.
Got it.
We're not bigger than all the hotels combined.
In aggregate, but the biggest hotel. How big is the biggest hotel?
I think it's got 1,000 rooms, and it's the Marriott or the Hilton in around Times Square. And so we have 5,000 rooms. We have thousands of people stay with us. We've had as many as I don't know, maybe on New Year's Eve we had 5,000 or 10,000 people just in New York staying on Airbnb, and there's no hotel can kind of accomplish that. And the really cool thing about Airbnb is there is literally a Airbnb in almost every block. I'm sure if we search the location, within a couple blocks of here, there's probably one. So it's anywhere you go in the city, it's basically an Airbnb.
No arrests, no murders, no rapes. I mean, you haven't had your Craigslist moment yet.
We've had 1.6 million nights booked. No one's been hurt. There's been no reports of any major problems.
It's got to be coming, though. This has got to be like hitchhiking in the 1960s, where it was safe and rational, and then it went horribly wrong.
1.6 million nights booked. I've driven cars for a shorter period of that, and I've been in 3 car accidents, so I'm going to say it's safer than a car. I have no idea.
Any tips for people on how to use Airbnb? You know, Mark Zuckerberg always talked about in the early days of Facebook that people were sort of adding all these people, and he was like, no, you're supposed to add your real world connections. Yeah. Do you see people who are using it not the way it's intended, or not getting the most out of it?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just adding a lot of information to your profile, especially if you have a listing. The thing that makes this work is that people knowing like what they're getting or who this person is that's coming to their place. Mm-hmm. And so if you kind of like don't have a photo of your dog, if you like don't have complete listing, that's not super productive or helpful. Mm-hmm. But if you've got like if you really just fill out all the information, you know, we make it pretty easy now connecting to Facebook to like import a lot of that. Mm-hmm. That's I think the key thing. That and just being super open-minded and just like remembering that like when you're hosting people, you're kind of hosting people on behalf of not just yourself, but your like community.
Right.
And sometimes you're hosting people on behalf of your country because there are people who are staying with you who've never even been in the country before, and you're their first impression.
Right.
Of the entire culture of the nation.
Southern manners. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. I like
Southern hospitality, and they used to have the pineapple representing hospitality in the South, so it's very much in that spirit.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on the success.